It is 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday in late February 2026. The trading floor at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange hasn't technically opened yet, but no one is sitting still. The hum of terminal keyboards is relentless. On three separate screens above the oil futures pit, the same footage loops. A smoldering communications tower outside Isfahan, a column of black smoke bending east into the desert sky, and cutting the scene entirely, the blue glow of a TikTok duet going viral at 40,000 shares per hour. Two teenage girls in Ohio lip-syncing to a remixed audio track of an Iranian state TV broadcast cutting to static. The hashtag is the screen went black. It has 900 million impressions by noon. The sound right now, it is not an explosion. It is the sound of silence where a market signal used to be. Brent crude jumped $14.80 per barrel overnight, the single largest 24-hour move since the invasion of Ukraine. West Texas Intermediate is doing something analysts haven't seen in 18 months. It is moving without volume. That means no one is selling, no one knows the floor. Meet Marcus Tillman. He is 44, a senior logistics manager at a mid-size freight brokerage that moves industrial parts between the Midwest and the Gulf Coast. He is not a defense contractor. He is not a Wall Street trader. He has not read a geopolitical briefing in his life. But tonight, Marcus is awake at 2 a.m. staring at a spreadsheet because the diesel fuel contract he locked in for Q2 2026 was priced when the Strait of Hormuz was open. He doesn't know yet whether it still is. Now cut to Austin, Texas. Amanda Sorrell runs a $280 million venture fund. Her portfolio is heavy on logistics tech, drone infrastructure, and one Israeli defense AI startup she led a Series B round in 8 months ago. Tonight, Amanda is on her fourth call with her LP advisory board. The question on the table: do they disclose material exposure to a portfolio company now operating in an active conflict zone? Her lawyers don't have a clear answer. The SEC hasn't issued guidance. She is making it up as she goes. Power question: is Operation Epic Fury the controlled demolition of a destabilizing regional power or the detonation of a global economic fault line no administration fully mapped? You cannot understand what is burning this week without understanding two decisions made in the previous 2 years. Keep the history lesson short, because this is not about the past. This is about the machine those decisions built, and the fact that it is now running without a kill switch. Root cause 1, the Abraham Accords Expansion Act of October 2024. A $47 billion defense integration framework that quietly authorized joint U.S.-Israeli offensive cyber and signals infrastructure in the region. The bill passed with almost no debate in the Senate Armed Services Committee. It created a legal architecture, contested to this day, under which shared targeting data between American and Israeli military systems could be used without requiring a separate congressional authorization for each kinetic action. Critics called it a blank check. Supporters called it deterrence architecture. Both were right. Root cause 2, the IRGC designation escalation of March 2025. The State Department under Secretary Ramirez elevated Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps from a foreign terrorist organization to a Tier 1 state threat actor, a classification that had never been used before and that carries automatic sanctions triggers, travel bans, and critically, expanded Title 50 Covert Action Authority. The decision was made in a Principals Committee meeting. It was not announced in a press conference. It was published in the Federal Register on a Friday afternoon. Those two moves built the runway. Operation Epic Fury was the plane. Here is where the money is actually moving in February 2026. The Department of Defense's Supplemental Appropriations Package, $38.4 billion, passed January 14th, allocated $9.2 billion specifically for what the budget language calls theater sustainment and force posture realignment in the CENTCOM AOR. That is the bureaucratic phrase for, we are paying for whatever just happened and whatever is about to happen next. Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, and L3 Technologies have all filed accelerated production requests with the Pentagon's Defense Contract Management Agency. Raytheon alone has requested emergency manufacturing authorization for an additional 1,400 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, the bunker-busting bomb designed specifically for hardened underground targets, the kind Iran built its nuclear program inside of. On the civilian side, the Treasury Department's OFAC has already issued 22 new sanctions designations in the 72 hours since the operation began. Iranian sovereign assets held in European clearinghouses, estimated at $6 to $9 billion, are in active legal freeze proceedings across Switzerland, Luxembourg, and the UK. Shell, TotalEnergies, and Equinor have all issued force majeure notices on existing contracts touching Iranian logistics corridors. The CEOs pivoting fastest right now are not in defense. They are in shipping. Maersk CEO Vincent Clerc issued an internal fleet directive on Monday rerouting 34 vessels away from Gulf of Oman transit lanes. That detour adds between 11 and 18 days to each voyage. That cost gets passed down all the way to Marcus Tillman's diesel contract in Columbus. Let us be precise. What do the verified, sourced, filed numbers tell us as of Q1 2026? Fact: Brent crude futures settled at $112.40 per barrel on February 28, 2026, up from $82.10 on January 1st. That is a 37% increase in under 60 days. The Federal Reserve's February 2026 Beige Book, released last week, flagged energy price volatility as the primary upside inflation risk for the first time since 2022. The Fed's language was careful. The subtext was not. Fact: the Bureau of Labor Statistics flash CPI estimate for February 2026 shows headline inflation re-accelerating to 4.1% year-over-year. Core PCE is at 3.6%. The Fed's target is 2%. Jerome Powell's successor, Chair Adriana Kugler, has publicly stated the Fed will not cut rates in this environment. The bond market has priced in 0 cuts for 2026. Fact: according to CENTCOM's official operational briefing, on February 26, 2026, Operation Epic Fury involved coordinated strikes on 7 command and control nodes associated with the IRGC Quds Force leadership structure, 3 hardened nuclear enrichment facilities in Fordow and Natanz, and the communications infrastructure of the Supreme Leader's office in Tehran. The operation was described as complete in its primary phase. What secondary phases exist has not been disclosed. Here is what is exploding on X, Substack, and TikTok right now, and here is why it has captured the public imagination in a way the official narrative has not. The dominant thread on X, running at over 4 million engagements as of this morning, centers on a single question: was Khamenei killed? The official White House position is that the United States does not comment on the status of foreign heads of state as a result of military operations. That sentence is so careful it sounds drafted by 12 lawyers, which it almost certainly was. It neither confirms nor denies. In the TikTok economy of 2026, that kind of statement is not neutral. It is fuel. The Khamenei is gone hashtag is currently the second trending term in the United States. The Operation Epic Fury hashtag has generated more than 1.4 billion impressions globally since Sunday. An AI-generated funeral scene video produced using publicly available generative tools and depicting a fictional state burial has been viewed 80 million times. It is clearly labeled synthetic. That has not reduced its reach. Why does this capture the imagination? Because the official narrative has a structural credibility problem. The same institutions that told the public weapons of mass destruction existed in Iraq in 2003, the same apparatus that said the Afghan government would hold for years, is now asking the public to trust a briefing that says primary phase complete, while a head of state has vanished from television. The digital underground is not irrational. It is pattern matching based on lived institutional betrayal. The Substack ecosystem has been even more structured. Several national security analysts with significant subscriber bases, including former intelligence officers who left government between 2020 and 2023, are publishing detailed assessments suggesting the operation was more expansive than disclosed. Their sourcing is anonymous. Their readership is in the hundreds of thousands. They are not wrong to ask the questions. They may or may not be right about the answers. The meme war and the discourse engine American politics in 2026 has a new gravity well, and it is this operation. The cultural response has fractured along lines that do not map cleanly onto the old left-right divide, and that fracture is generating some of the most volatile political content the internet has produced since 2020. On the right, the dominant visual is a grainy image, almost certainly AI-generated, of an F-35 silhouetted against an orange desert sunset with the text, "We finished it." It has become the unofficial poster of a specific kind of nationalist triumphalism that is performative, aesthetically polished, and politically weaponizable. The hashtag "finished it" has been adopted by at least 4 Senate candidates in competitive 2026 races. It signals, "I am with the operation, I am with strength, vote accordingly." On the left, the dominant content is angrier and more fragmented. The hashtag #NoBlankChecks is running across progressive circles, linking the AUMF controversy to the 2003 Iraq War authorization in explicit, historically literate terms. Representative Yolanda Cruz of California introduced a resolution demanding the OLC memo's release within 72 hours of the operation. It has 31 co-sponsors. It is going nowhere in the current House, but it is generating enormous small-dollar fundraising for Cruz's campaign operation. The most culturally powerful content, however, belongs to neither camp. It is a 90-second video by a 22-year-old creator in Detroit, at Merriam, speaks on TikTok, who is Iranian-American, who has family in Tehran she has not been able to reach since Sunday, and who is sitting in her car speaking directly to K. No edits, no music, she says, "I don't know if my aunt is alive. The networks are down. My government did this and won't tell me what they did. I am not the enemy. I am American. I need to know." It has 210 million views. It has been shared by senators from both parties. It has been cited in 3 editorials in the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Atlantic in the same week, which has not happened with a single piece of social content in at least 2 years. Ipsos ran an emergency flash poll between February 26 and 28, 2026. The findings are striking and should be read carefully. 61% of Americans say they support military action to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons. That number has been stable for years. But here is the shift. Only 34% say they believe the administration has been transparent about what happened. Only 29% say they trust the official timeline. And most significant for November, 52% say they believe Congress was not adequately consulted before the operation. That last number is the one every campaign manager in America is staring at this morning. It is not a question about whether the operation was right. It is a question about process, authority, and who decides when America goes to war. In the 2026 midterm environment, that is not an abstract constitutional question. That is a voting issue. Gallup's weekly mood tracker, released Friday, shows the dominant American emotional register right now is not rage and it is not apathy. It is anxious vigilance, a distinct, exhausted watchfulness. People are watching the news more than they have since early 2022. They are trusting it less than they ever have. They are making decisions about jobs, about investments, about where their kids go to school in the context of uncertainty that feels permanent rather than temporary. The psychological infrastructure of American civic life is under load. The midterm price tag here is the political arithmetic of an unresolved crisis by November 2026, and it is merciless regardless of party affiliation. If oil remains above $100 a barrel through Q3 2026, the average American household will spend an estimated $2,400 more on energy costs this year than in 2025. That is a number the Bureau of Labor Statistics will publish in October, 2 weeks before Election Day. If the administration cannot show either stable prices or a clear path to stability, that number becomes the most dangerous political document in America. The congressional authority question is equally acute. 3 federal judges in the D.C. Circuit have already received emergency filings from civil liberties organizations challenging the legal basis of the operation under the War Powers Resolution. A ruling before November is not guaranteed, but it is possible. If the D.C. Circuit rules against the administration's legal theory, it forces a vote. A vote on an active military operation in an election year, with 52% of the public already believing Congress was cut out. That is a political detonation with no clean fallout zone. The midterm map right now gives Republicans a structural advantage in the Senate and a narrow but real chance to flip the House further. But geopolitical volatility historically scrambles structural advantages. 2026 will test that rule in real time. Fork in the road. 2027 scenarios. Scenario 1. The stabilization scenario requires 5 things to happen in sequence, and they are all plausible. First, Iran's post-IRGC leadership, whoever emerges from the current power vacuum, signals de-escalation to prevent a complete economic collapse. Iranian reformist factions, which have been suppressed but never eliminated, make contact with European intermediaries by April. Second, the Strait of Hormuz remains operationally open. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, who privately supported the operation and whose sovereign wealth funds are heavily dollar-denominated, have enormous financial incentive to keep it open and do so explicitly. Third, the administration releases a declassified summary of the OLC legal opinion and submits a retroactive authorization resolution to Congress, which passes along party lines but passes. This diffuses the constitutional crisis without conceding the legal argument. Fourth, oil falls back below $90 by Q4 2026 as Saudi production increases absorb the Iranian supply shock. Fifth, a successor Iranian government, however fragile, agrees to IAEA monitoring under conditions that extend enrichment breakout time beyond 12 months. In this scenario, the administration claims a historic national security achievement. The 2026 midterms are fought primarily on domestic economic grounds. The operation is remembered as brutal, legally contested, but strategically decisive. A generation of foreign policy scholars spend the next 30 years arguing about it. The world does not end. Scenario 2, the fracture scenario, begins with the same first 72 hours, but diverges at a single point: succession failure in Tehran. The moderate and technocratic factions inside the Iranian government do not consolidate. The Basij and the surviving hardline elements of the IRGC move first. They do not de-escalate. They escalate. Not with nuclear weapons, those facilities are destroyed or seized, but with proxy activation across the region. Hezbollah in Lebanon moves against Israeli northern communities. Houthi forces in Yemen resume full-spectrum Red Sea disruption. Iraqi Shia militias attack U.S. logistics hubs in Baghdad and Erbil. In this scenario, the U.S. is not in a brief military operation. It is managing a multi-front regional war with no exit timeline. Oil does not fall. It goes to $140. The Fed cannot cut into a supply shock. Jerome Chair Kugler holds rates at 5.25%. The housing market, already under strain, cracks. The 30-year mortgage rate hits 8.4%. Marcus Tillman's logistics company lays off 60 people. Amanda Sorrell's fund marks down its portfolio by 35% and faces LP redemption requests it cannot honor. In this scenario, the November 2026 elections are held in the context of active military engagement, a stagflationary economy, and a constitutional crisis that no court has fully resolved. The vibe shift that Gallup currently measures as anxious vigilance becomes something darker. Turnout spikes among the most activated partisan bases. The center, already exhausted, already disengaged, stays home. The operation has been launched. The primary phase is complete. The question history will answer is not whether America struck. It is whether America had a plan for the morning after. Marcus Tillman will get his answer about diesel prices sometime this spring. Amanda Sorrell will get her SEC guidance, or she won't. The 22-year-old in Detroit may or may not hear from her aunt in Tehran. These are the human units of this moment, not abstractions, not cable news graphics, not campaign ad footage. The story of Operation Epic Fury is still being written. The ink is still wet. And the most important thing a serious journalist can tell you right now, the most useful and most honest thing, is this: anyone who claims to know exactly how this ends is not reading the intelligence. They are reading their own ideological confirmation. The data, right now, in the first week of March 2026, supports only one conclusion with certainty. The region has changed, the market has moved, and no one, not in Washington, not in Tehran, not in Austin or Columbus, is going back to where they were last month. Stay with us. This story has a long way to run.